to round up this great event, which we have started on a very good note yesterday. There's going to be a panel session, that we'll be having a lot of great, minded, people, professionals, skilled, medical doctors and high-tech health tech experts in the house. But I'm not going to introduce them. I will allow the moderator to introduce them. So let me introduce our great moderator in the person of Dr. Kenneth Egwuda. He is the CEO of Alps Hospital and Diagnostics. So Dr. Kenneth, we are glad to have you up here, and the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rasen, for the great grand moderation you've been doing. The program has actually been very exciting, igniting, and I lack words to use in describing how burning the desire is to have this practice of medicine established in not just Nigeria, but across Africa entirely. And it's been very informative, very educating, and the only thing one could wish for, having listened to all the great minds, intellectuals, and technocrats in all these fields speak about, is to desire to have this practice established, because it's all about the life of Africans, the life of Nigerians. So as we're rounding up today, I'm moderating this the topic. Just give me a minute. We're looking at building a healthcare ecosystem and healthcare workforce training, not just Nigeria, if you permit me, but across Africa. And I want to assume that I'm being heard very clearly, because I'm not sure what's happening with my speakers. Am I heard? Can I get some information? All right, that's good. Thank you so much. All right, thank you. So I have three great panelists on this session, and I'm going to take time to introduce them briefly as we go into discussing the main course of our meeting today. So I'm going to introduce them in this format. I'm beginning with Dr. Abiola Fasina Ayoola. Apologies if I malpronounce the name. Yeah, I hope I did some justice to it. Dr. Abiola Fasina is the founder and the CEO of an emergency healthcare consultant and critical care physician, and a health policy consultant based in Lagos. Dr. Fasina completed her training in emergency medicine at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. After several years of practice, she completed a 2-year emergency point of care ultrasound fellowship and a master's in health policy development education in Nigeria, and practiced clinical emergency and critical care medicine. There's so much attached to her credentials, her profile. It's very tall, and I believe she brings a whole world of expertise when it gets to talking about building ecosystem and developing manpower or workforce for Nigeria or Africa. The second person that'll be on the panel with us is Dr. Ruben Gombaland. And Dr. Ruben Gombaland is a chief medical officer in a Standard Care Medical Center in Abuja, and Cedar Crest Hospital Associates. He is the CEO and founder of Web's Med Lecture, which is
Hello, Dr. Abiola. You need to unmute your microphone because we didn't hear you.
I didn't say anything.
Okay,
sorry. Us.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Ruben is the CEO and the co-founder of WebMed Lecture, which is a visual medical education platform. He has taken keen interest in a cell-based medicine and a voracious believer in the possibility of potential of telemedicine. He has served as the president of the International Student Medical Research Group in Ukraine in 2013. And the third panelist is Dr. Adeolu Arogundade, the president of Society of Telemedicine and eHealth in Nigeria. He is a technology enthusiast from medical school. He acquired master's degree in global eHealth from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. He served on the Standard Organization of Nigeria team to the International Organization for Standards. So this is much we could take about the introduction. I believe as we go on talking, we're going to hear all the stuff that could contribute in development of ecosystem in Nigeria. So going to the topic properly, I'd like to know what your take is as the audience are listening, Dr. Abiola Fasina Ayoola. What do you think it would take for a great country like Nigeria and by extension Africa to develop a good ecosystem in telehealth or telemedicine, and also building a healthy workforce that could help pull the country through this stage of transition, probably from analog medicine to the telehealth we're looking for, which is the future. And currently, this is the kind of practice that is desired in this part of the world.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me. I think that first of all, I should mention that in addition to founding Emergency Healthcare Consultants, which focuses on education and training in emergency and critical care, I'm also the medical director of Ayoola Hospital, which is the largest private hospital in the state. And so I'm acutely aware of issues with workforce issues in healthcare and trying to train physicians with a very narrow supply. Telehealth is going to become an adjunct to medical care. I don't think you're ever going to fully move to teleconsultations. There's an art and a science to medicine, and there's an interaction and a relationship that you build with your patients, which can only happen face to face. We can use the telehealth platform to augment that. We can use AI to improve it, to make us more efficient and faster. But I don't yet think that we're at the place where telehealth will supplant all of that 100%. Nevertheless, what are some of the things I think we need to speak about in this panel today? Several issues. I think as a medical director and as a physician, the main thing that's affecting my ability to deliver care appropriately right now refers to mostly the supply of physicians and clinicians in the country. I think we're all acutely aware that many people are leaving the country in droves, and this has affected our clinical workforce immensely, from our junior doctors all the way up to our consultants. And it's forced us to actually think about new ways of bringing people up to speed and of training new people. And so I think traditional training models are going to change. And what we are seeing is a lot of task shifting to other cadres of care, but also incorporation of new ways of teaching skills and leveraging our international network. And that's really where the telehealth and the remote consultations and technology have been really helpful in helping us to leverage international networks to provide care when we lack those resources locally. Privately, in my practice, we've been using a lot of these things to help us to analyze and spool our data to figure out where we should be concentrating our resources. We've been trying to use a lot of ingenious ways to kind of bring in telemedicine to teach our junior residents and our junior doctors, particularly when it comes to point of care ultrasound, which is one of my specialties, in terms of teaching people how to have remote instruction, remote image review, remote image acquisition. We're putting a lot of AI platforms into a lot of the ultrasound machines to guide people as they're scanning so that they can acquire better images. And then we have remote, review with consultants to help people have a read on their images, because we have not too many radiologists around anymore to help us with interpretation. So those are some of the ways that we are using technology in the ecosystem. Nigeria's healthcare is changing. I think we are evolving from the small family-led hospitals to places like Ayoola that are becoming behemoths. They're conglomerates of big facilities that are acquiring smaller ones. And I think it's just speaking to the evolution of our healthcare industry. And it's inevitable because, one, we don't have the staff to man so many different places. But two, efficiency and improvement in quality of care comes from doing something again and again and again. And so it's to our benefit, I think, to actually have centers that have so many patients and a lot of foot traffic, because that means that those centers and those clinicians get very good at doing the things that they do well, rather than having this dispersion of services. Furthermore, getting a hospital up is an extremely expensive endeavor, and the return on your investment takes a very long time. Getting somebody to buy an MRI and a CT scan and build a hospital and an oxygen generation plant for 10 patients is a waste of money. Inevitably, we have to kind of put things together and increase our market share so that each of these hospitals actually has the foot traffic to actually sustain some of the investments that are going into making our healthcare more technologically driven and following the international standards of care. So that's what we're seeing. We're beginning to see a collapse of the smaller hospital and hospitals coming together in bigger groups so that they have more power, essentially, to negotiate with HMOs, to bring in technology, to bring in investments, to elevate the healthcare that we're providing to Nigerians. And I think that that is just inevitably where we're going to go. So there's been a lot of discussions in the healthcare sector about pooling resources, hospitals jointly going in to buy equipment and then sharing the use of that equipment, when we realize that everybody cannot buy an MRI and everybody doesn't have enough people to use the MRI. Maybe one person should buy it and we all chip in. So a lot of talk is going on around how to change the models of our care and how to also finance that care. Any discussion around telehealth, telemedicine must also talk about financing of this new kind of model of care. And so that's really what we are dealing with, what we are seeing, and it's a changing and evolving landscape, but it's a very exciting time to be practicing medicine in Nigeria. Thank you.
I can imagine how interesting it is practicing medicine in this part of the world. Yeah, I'm coming over to you now, Dr. Ruben. What's your take on how to go about building a healthcare ecosystem and healthcare workforce training in Nigeria and by extension Africa? You have the floor. I have the next 5 minutes.
All right, then. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to appreciate the organizers for this wonderful event that they've put together. Yeah, so streaming it down to the topic or to the question at hand, building a healthcare ecosystem. Yes, if you actually go back memory lane, you appreciate the fact that there have been some certain advances in the whole healthcare industry. And then I think this particular advances actually comes up due to the fact that we have a sort of a change in philosophy from the hierarchy model that we used to operate before to a more ecosystem. That's an ecosystem-based philosophy right away, because the ecosystem-based philosophy will tend to encourage team spirit and a connectedness within the whole key players in the healthcare industry. So, but then understanding, ways to build a healthcare sector, improve on the current healthcare models that we have that are, it has to do with understanding what are the stakeholders, right? We need to understand the stakeholders that are actually the key players within the healthcare ecosystem, right? Yes, we've talked about the hospitals. Also has been a very important key players in the health ecosystem. Of course, bringing it down to the new advances of telemedicine, and then of course different sort of platform businesses that are now going into the health. They are finding their way into the healthcare ecosystem, of which the telemedicine platform is actually up there with respect to the medical practice. Yes, but one thing we need to also make sure emphasize is the importance of improving our value chain. That is one. Secondly, also the importance of improving our health innovation ecosystem. Yes, bringing it down to our health innovation ecosystem as well as our value chain. These are very key players in the healthcare ecosystem. By improving on these two spheres or two aspects of the healthcare ecosystem, we will be able to have an overall improvement on what is obtainable And also, it will also help us to be able to bring about novel ways of doing things, which will ultimately lead to improvement in service delivery, in terms of quality, in terms of accessibility, and then of course in terms of cost. Yeah, because it will also help us to foster in new avenues whereby patients can become much more involved in their care. Yes. So, with respect to building sustainable healthcare ecosystem in Nigeria, and then by extension in Africa, like I said initially, we need to trickle down on looking at the major players, the stakeholders. We talked about which the hospitals. Then we also need to look at also building researches, because research facilities as well as researchers are an intricate and important aspect of the healthcare ecosystem, because those are the stakeholders. So these are the stakeholders that actually bring about novelty, that sort of new ways, new innovations towards clinical practice, and then towards healthcare delivery overall, which will culminate in improvement in what? Care delivery, and overall improvement in clinical experience of the patient. So, like I said, so the main thing, what we need to do is to trickle down, look at those major stakeholders, increase our spending, increase our investment in all those things, and then also encourage a more patient participation, because the more the patient participate, or the more the client or the users of this healthcare system, the more they are involved in the clinical decisions, right? And how do we do that? By what? Creating platforms whereby they are part of the decision making process. If they are part of the decision making process, this will go a long way in improving their overall clinical experience. Yes, and then of course it will also lead to the improvement on the existing ecosystem, and also give us a building ground for us to be able to build something much more better for the future. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ruben. I'm coming over to you, Dr. Adeolu. Yeah, thank you. You're right up here with us. So, we'd like to get your take on what it takes to have a healthy ecosystem and a healthcare ecosystem and a healthcare workforce training in Nigeria. Over to you. You have the next 5 minutes before we go over to the other speakers.
All right, thank you very much. Before I start, please pardon me. I am out of base, and I'm currently in a makeshift environment where I don't have the full component of, I don't have the best internet access that I wish. So if I find that my bandwidth usage is becoming an issue, I may turn off my video. For now, I'm good. So I'll actually try and focus a little bit on the digital health workforce in the healthcare ecosystem. And I'm going to start out by saying that a digital health workforce is a critical part of developing telemedicine or digital health solutions, not just in Nigeria, not just in Africa, across the world. In fact, it's so important that it is one of the 7 components that WHO listed for as components of developing a eHealth system. It's the workforce is one of the critical parts, and it's as important as the solution we are deploying itself. We are deploying a digital health solution. It is having a trained workforce is as important as the solution we are developing itself. And a trained workforce is not only scarce in Nigeria, it is scarce across the globe. It is difficult to find adequately trained digital health workforce to deploy the kind of solutions that we're looking at. Now, when I say it is, I'm talking about relative terms. That is scarce globally doesn't mean it's the same way it is scarce in Nigeria. It's relative. What we need in Nigeria is we're still struggling with the basics. The healthcare workforce itself is still scarce in Nigeria. Now, when you talk about a digital health workforce, we're talking about a workforce that understands healthcare, that understands ICT, and then understands the organization or the culture, the socio-cultural issues of that environment. And they can pull these three knowledge together to implement a given solution. So as we speak now, we are finding it difficult to find a workforce that is skilled enough to deliver just healthcare, not to not add ICT and the other components of socio-technical understanding to it. So it is class, and if you've been following trends some years back, the American AMIA, the American Medical Informatics Association, started the project, the 10 by 10 initiative, where they aimed to train 10,000 skilled digital healthcare workforce and informaticists, which by 2010. As they were approaching that goal, the goalpost was shifting because they realized they even need more than what they have been working to get. So this scarcity spills into our environments, the developing world, Nigeria in particular, because of the fact that we have a unique healthcare system in Nigeria, in Africa. If you look at healthcare systems across the world, you will find that health systems were developed based on the unique nature of the environment, the socio-technical systems, the culture that prevailed in the environment. So you have the different healthcare systems, you have the beverage, we run a unique one where we are adopting what was developed in other systems. And then if you also, by extension, take that into the kind of digital health solutions, telemedical solutions that we have in the country, a good part of it were adopted from some other climes, maybe more developed countries, where we bring these solutions in and then we try to adapt them to our systems. And naturally, because they were not inherently built from the ground up within our system, they tend to require a larger knowledge gap. We have to, train more people to be able to use it. In the process of implementing some of them, you may find that the staff who are used to a particular kind of culture may find it difficult to integrate themselves into what you are doing. And I'll give you an example of that. Recently, we were at a forum and we were talking about EMR deployment in Nigeria and in Lagos particularly. And some people were telling us about the benefits of having digital health wallets. And some people that have been running EMRs, found it difficult to understand the concept of the wallet and how to implement it, because generally speaking, a healthcare wallet is not a common thing in our culture. So you find people find it difficult to say, we need to have this. Our system has programmed us to be used to more of out-of-pocket payments. I need a service now, I pay for it. I need this now, I pay for it. So having a workforce that understands the system is harder to train and harder to build, and even so in our own particular environment, because the solutions we are using were not developed from there. And so personally, we at the Society for Telemedicine here, we believe that training the healthcare workforce that understand digital health has to start, will be one of the solutions to many things. One of them is the fact that somebody was talking about innovation just a little while ago. You see, people can innovate when they develop solutions that are based on a system that they understand. If people were trained enough, and when I say people that they are not enough, it doesn't mean that they are not enough. They are not people in Nigeria that understands digital health. They are solution developers, they are providers that have built their solutions from the ground up. What I'm talking about is that we don't have them in enough scale to be able to tilt our healthcare delivery towards using digital health the way we would want it to be. So they exist. But the fact that we lack a large pool enough makes it difficult to build from the scratch what will innovatively fit the kind of system that we have here. And that's a challenge. So talking about training, training has to be, first of all, we need to understand what the issues are. What are the gaps from as far up as the policy makers, the people that make policies about digital health in our environments, people that implement them, the people that decide what solutions to procure. They need to also understand where we are. One of the things in the Society for Telemedicine and eHealth that we have to deal with at a particular period in the evolution of digital health in Nigeria was that people were looking at solutions. So if you came up with a product and say, oh, I saw this in a movie yesterday, there's this solution that is able to read your mind and then tell somebody's going to bring it to us and to a policymaker and say, oh, solution is fantastic. Let us evolve, let's develop it and add it to our healthcare system. And because the policymaker does not have enough information, enough education to realize how these policies are made, the fundamentals that are important for sustainable digital health solution provision, because they don't have that education, they just buy into it. And then what you find is that we are pursuing technology, not necessarily solutions. And then the technologies that we are pursuing are not sustainable, and then they maintain by our systems and are not affordable. And ultimately, they take away already scarce resources from treating malaria, from treating diarrhea, into buying technology that will become obsolete in a couple of years and then we'll be pursuing ones. So if we have trained policymakers, we have trained implementers, we will be able to make the proper decisions. And like I said, it starts from understanding the gaps. And then, we begin to, once we identify what the gaps are at the different levels, we begin to draw plans to fill them. One of the things that the society has also advocated for, and we've done this at multiple levels, is that the curriculum for digital health for healthcare providers, across the country should be upgraded to include some degree of digital health education. If I remember a couple of years back, we actually had a conference that epitomized this. We brought together great minds, stakeholders in the healthcare industry from the university we invited the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, Nursing Council, the Health Records Board of Nigeria. We brought all the stakeholders together and members of the academia as well, the university. And we began to talk about how to change the curriculum to include adequate training, and some degree of training that will introduce healthcare workers into what they may end up facing in their practice. And the discussion started. We even had the Nigerian University Commission at that meeting, and they laid out the things that need to be done. So these are critical steps to take to evolve a healthcare workforce that can sustain our country, the kind of solutions that we need.
Okay.
And I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Adeolu, for this great contribution. You really emphasize the place of even policy trainers, policy implementers, and training, even in inclusion of training into academic curriculum. But I'd like to go over to Dr. Abiola, Dr. Abiola Fasina. Ayoola, if you can hear me, I want to get what your take is. You mentioned from your talk that it's going to be very difficult or almost impossible to go fully 100% into telehealth, which I agree with you. It can't be telehealth all together. There will be some stop gaps at some point. I don't know if I'm presenting you very well, but this my question for you is this: with the way the academic system, I'm talking about the medical academic system in Nigeria, is structured, do you think we need to revisit it, and to overhaul it and include some of these digital health, will I call it training as part of the syllabus, part of the education, so we could get them young? Because you see, if at best now, most of us didn't get all of this when we were schooling in Nigeria. I had nothing about it Everything we saw live, direct on the table while we're all training in Nigeria. I remember training with the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology in London. And part of my test was that I was asked whether I played the piano. I said no, I scored 0. I also was asked whether I played the guitar. I scored 0. I was asked whether I played with the computer console or the drones. I said no. I wonder what they were all asking. They were trying to gauge my eye-hand coordination to see whether or not I can fit into the system. And I realized what kind of system I had actually come through. I have to go back to the very basic and train from the scratch. So now, Dr. Fasina, what do you think about the academic curriculum, medical practice, medical education in Nigeria? Do you think the nursing education, the ancillary health education, the medical education should be overhauled so it could have all of this thing in it, and so we could have an easy flow, an easy indoctrination into this newfound love and the direction to go digital health?
So this is kind of a leading question because there's only one right answer. But of course, I mean, the medical education system in Nigeria needs a overhaul in many areas, not just in digital health. Digital health is just one of the areas in which we have to really tweak our education system. And I'm speaking from the perspectives of someone who didn't have my medical training in Nigeria, but I've come home and I'm working here now, and I am interacting with my peers and seeing the difference in our education. And there are marked differences in the way that I was trained versus the way that I approach problems, and even professionalism at the bedside compared to my Nigerian colleagues, taking into account that there are excellent and stellar, fantastic doctors here. But it seems as if in Nigeria, you are trained to work very hard, but maybe not very smart. So, there isn't even just basic things that we took for granted where I trained, the use of apps and online reference materials that became second nature. We never carried books anymore. Everything was on your phone. Even that is stuff that you're introducing sometimes to even very young doctors about the fact that you're supposed to reference things when you're working. And you can actually just download the app and look at it. And you can just put in the numbers and it will calculate out whatever clinical score you're trying to cram just through your phone. A lot of work around trying to have our EMRs be fully functional to integrate clinical decision-making scores and help us be smarter in terms of our documentation. My training involved a lot of high-fidelity simulation. So there was a lot of practice in situations that simulated the real thing, which is something that is very hard to find here, virtually unheard of, for you to have the opportunity to practice in that setting, to have feedback, especially for specialties like mine that have a lot of, that are very high acuity with a lot of chaos going on at the same time, and emergency and critical care. So simulation was a very big way for us to kind of learn how to intubate, learn how to do the chest tubes before you actually approach a real patient. Now, even going on to now telemedicine and digital health, I mean, that's even taking it a step further. The Nigerian healthcare system hasn't even got the basics of integrating some of these technological frameworks in. And so, unfortunately, as is the case a lot of times in Africa, we are running to catch up with everyone else. And so we have to kind of integrate these things while we are also fixing our foundation. To speak to Dr. Adeolu's point, which is that a lot of our systems were incorporated and absorbed from external forces, and we don't even have the research infrastructure to develop our own data. All of these things are just coming online. So even if we try to build it anew, what are we building? We don't have the information to decide what would work best for Nigeria. But that is the fundamental problem, that we have taken something that wasn't ours, and now we are trying to make it work. And we have still very entrenched and a very strong old guard that are the gatekeepers of this, as they rightly should be. But there's a lot of push and pull as we're trying to steer all of this towards modern medicine. And so, to answer your question in short, absolutely. Our entire system of educating clinicians has to change.
I agree with you very well, and I think if we ever have the opportunity to interact with policymakers, we should take the direction Dr. Adeolu mentioned. Interact and try to push towards modification, overhauling, retraining, and advancement in training, at least so we could just measure up a bit to international partners or international bodies, so we could bring Nigeria up to 10. And now I want to go over to you, Dr. Ruben, if you can hear me. Dr.
Yes.
Ruben,
Okay.
thank you so much. Your contribution was very great. And now you talked about community participation at some point while you were having your shoot at the topic. Yeah, we have on this arm the medical workforce that is being trained or being encouraged to adapt and go fully into telehealth or telecare or telemedicine. And now we have this huge, humongous population, to a large extent uneducated. I know that from public health perspective, for instance, a technology may be very welcoming, may be very interesting, and if the community is not primed for it, we find it very difficult to still deploy it. So, what do you think we should do with the community? How should we engage the community, and how should we make all of this work? Healthcare working, community not working. How do we achieve this?
All right. Well, thank you for that question, sir. Yes, actually, it's not about inaction coming up with systems. It's all about making sure that the system has practical use with, measurable effect with respect to the targets, that we are looking at in this perspective. So yes, if we have a disparity between, the know-how and then how to use the systems that we've come up with, what we could do right now is to actually take advantage of our public health agents, right? Who have been trained, of course, to make use of this particular system that we're trying to get across to the local communities. So by so doing, these are people that they understand the local languages of those people, and they understand how they think, so they could be able to pass across those complex or those similarly advanced or high-tech or highfalutin new ways of doing things. So as it's going to become a little bit more relatable to the layman on the street. So we have to actually make use of our public health agents. They will be trained, those folks will be trained, and those are the people that will actually download or step down the knowledge in ways that they can be able to understand. That is one, and also in practical terms, ways that they can be able to, make use of these systems and actually benefit from it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Adeolu, if you're still up with us and you still have good bandwidth with your data, I'd like to get your thought about this. Now we're talking about telehealth, has to do with technology, communication, information, and all of that. Wasn't from 2 to 3 years ago in United Kingdom, I think there was a breach of the cyber space, and health information was actually affected, and delivery of medical care and services actually got so terrible, and it cost the life of some people. What do you think about the security of the telehealth? How do you think we can manage securing the telehealth information, the data, the records, and all of that? Do you think the government should pay a very important thought or consideration towards securing this? I'm talking about cybersecurity, for instance. What's your thought about it?
Well, like Dr. Abiola said earlier on, it's a leading question. Yes, the government should definitely pay a lot of attention to data security in Nigeria. I'm going to also speak to, talking about workforce. Most of the technology for securing data. Yeah, I should also mention that, of course, now we have the National Data Protection Regulation that should help protect data in the country. We also need to understand that we need to ensure that healthcare providers across the country understand this. It's never been in our culture to protect data. I don't know, wrongfully so. we need to, yes, we hold things, even sometimes we keep the data from the owners of the data. But to really protect the data, we've not done that very well in time past. But we need to now begin to let healthcare workers know the implication of a data breach. We need to begin to teach them that these are the potential things that can happen if there was a data breach. And sometimes make them feel what it means if they were in the same position, both economically and socially. And that's on one side. Now, talking about the workforce, you see, most of the data protection, digital encryption methods that we use are a bit complex, and many of them are not well understood by, except for technology experts, which in the first place are few. And now the interface or that area where of convergence with digital health experts and healthcare providers. That interface is where that point where they meet is not that large. So we need to begin to let healthcare workers understand and train them in data protection. Why am I saying so? Think about all the places that there's a big data breach. We had talked about the one in the UK. The people that were behind the data breach, they were hackers. And these are guys that sit behind the computer all day, all night long, and doing all kind of things that they want to do. If we're going to be digitizing our data, we must ensure that we have enough plans with enough adequate understanding on the important things to do to secure data. And it starts by workforce training. As we speak, in many of our healthcare facilities, people still go around with USB sticks to transfer files. People still use private email servers like Gmail, like Google Mail to move around official information without real understanding of the potential implications if there was to be a breach. And then if you're talking about government data, for example, I don't know, NHIS and all of that. Where is the data stored? All of these things are things that we don't know. Or if we know, the custodian of those systems, do they understand healthcare? Yeah, many times you find that they understand ICT, they understand information communication technology. But do they understand how it applies to healthcare? Do they understand how it works in our environment? And the people that are generating and collating this data, the healthcare workers, do they understand the importance of the things that they have to do? So definitely government has to we have to play a bigger role in ensuring that the healthcare workforce is adequately trained. But it's not all bad, it's not all, it's not like we think it is, because as we speak, government is already taking steps to ensure that healthcare workforce is adequately trained, or at least they're taking some steps. Where we are right now is not where we used to be a few years back. And I can say that to you because our society was part of the crafting of the National Digital Health Strategic Framework and Policy Document that's supposed to guide the country between 2021 and 2026. And I can tell you confidently that document incorporated some of these things that we are talking about into the necessary thing that has to be done with regards to healthcare workforce. They need to have them trained. They need to ensure that they are also exposed to the things that are happening outside the country. Now, I spoke earlier when I talked about the fact that we should build a system from the scratch, from ground up. Now, I'm not trying to suggest by any means that we should reinvent the wheel. Of course, there are solutions that have been provided already. Some people have done some work for us in the time past, and we should come and build on them, but we should understand our system. So that document speaks to interacting with people outside, our peers, digital health peers, ICT peers outside the country, understanding what they are doing so that they can apply it appropriately in our country. And one other thing that says that, and is critical to developing a workforce that understands it, is to create a career path for digital health enthusiasts, which will encourage whether they are nurses, they are laboratory technicians, they are doctors, who have this excitement to work in ICT. They can find a career path there. And we have a young, vibrant population that is digitally, they have very high IQ. They understand these things. We encourage them to get it. those career paths. And before you know it, they'll craft solutions for us. I'll answer problems. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a sign that it's time for us to hand over this session to our able grand moderator, Dr. Raphael. So thank you for coming up, and thanks for giving us the space and time to deliberate about building a healthy ecosystem and workforce for Nigeria.
Anything Dr. Raphael is saying, is he on mute?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Dr. Raphael.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I thought I've been talking. I never knew that I wasn't heard. What I said earlier was that I want to thank you, Dr. Kenneth, for that brilliant and wonderful moderation that you have given. And there's no how this panel can be so fruitful and educative without the presence of the other panelists. I want to thank Dr. Abiola Fasina Ayoola for the great insight that she put into this discussion. She said so many things that I don't want to start, repeating again, which are very, very educative. I was looking at the comment section and, questions were going on. And also Dr. Adeolu Arogundade, she looked at it from the angle of, we need to develop a culture that is really going to change the narrative in the healthcare industry, particularly in the tech, medical tech world, which is very important. Changing of curriculum to ensure that we integrate the digital technology into our healthcare system. Dr. Ruben Gombalandi, also made a lot of very salient points, which I know that, definitely many people on this platform, the participants on the platform are really, really gaining a lot of knowledge. And we want to thank you so much on behalf of the Rendezvous experts, which put this program together. And we want to appreciate you that you honored this invitation. We'll be having more of this coming up in Nigeria very, very soon. And we believe that we can have you, supporting this program. Thank you so much once again for your beautiful time, for your quality time. And we wish you a very beautiful evening. You have made this summit a huge success. There's a Nigerian adage that said, the big masquerade ends in the shrine, but these are not big masquerade. These are big, giant medical tech, specialists that have come to this platform. We really appreciate you. And it's a great pleasure for me to have this virtual interaction with you. Once again, on behalf of Rendezvous Expert, we are saying thank you very much.